Hello there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Today, we will be discussing some Homestuck analysis. I hope you're ready because we're going to get really deep into this. Today, I'll be discussing Dave Strider and his development as a character. At first glance, he seems like a hyper-masculine asshole who tries too hard, but in reality, he's a highly complex character with deep emotional wounds. Dave was raised by an abusive guardian. This is common knowledge. He spent his childhood in constant fear and was forced to fight with a grown man who did not take it easy on him at all from what we see. At first, he believes this to be normal because it's all he knows. But after Bro's death, we see him realize that he isn't sad that his guardian is gone. He seems confused because he knows he's supposed to be, according to societal norms. Throughout most of the story, we see him dodge his feelings and hide from the painful reality. He is an abuse survivor. Dave doesn't want to be seen as a victim, and thus buries his feelings behind a wall of irony and a stone face. At the start of the story, Dave and John often make passive-aggressively homophobic remarks, as this is the norm for human society. Just a whole lot of no homo and bro culture type jokes. The fact that his guardian is actually called Bro drives in further that Dave's character arc is a huge analogy for bro culture causing underhanded and not always intentional homophobia through toxic masculinity. In many early conversations with Rose and Jade, we see him express that he feels some need to prove himself manly enough, though this isn't explicitly stated. The girls both shut this down fast, even though he seemed to be joking. Despite this, Dave never considered himself a hero, nor did he want to be one. Dave's first love interest apparent is Jade, as they both frequently flirted back and forth in their chat logs. His friendship with Jade lended a lot to his development, as seeing her be so independent showed him something different from what his hypermasculine guardian had taught him. Girls can be badasses too. Not that he was ever inherently misogynistic, he simply didn't know better. We also see Rose psychoanalyzing Dave frequently and calling him out on his bullshit, while also predicting the outcome of him questioning his sexuality, which is never openly addressed by himself until his talk with Dirk before Collide. We'll return to that later. Dave's relationship with John starts out super close, best bros forever and all that, but in reading between the lines, one could speculate that he had romantic feelings for John that he never addressed at one point, though this is a stretch. At a certain point, very early on, he explicitly states that he loves him to Rose, to which she replies, "I know." This sticks out to me because of how early on this was. This was still when he was buried deep in stoicism, when stating outright that he loved anyone would seem odd, especially another boy. We also see Dave's love for John through Dave Sprite's conversations with him, and the fact that Dave Sprite even exists. Andrew Hussie himself has even stated that he likes to think that over the years, Dave has accumulated thousands of pages of sent messages after John has already logged off of Pester Chum. Yes, thousands. They seem to be the closest of the beta kids. Even despite Dave's interest in Jade, he obviously values his friendship with John more than any of the other relationships, at least at the time. They grew apart during the 3 years they spent out of contact, and this is when he really starts to visibly develop. Dave begins showing romantic interest in Terezi, which is what starts his platonic rivalry with Karkat. Through this rivalry, we see Dave start to learn about troll culture at a snail's pace, due to his stubborn nature. But he does, nonetheless, because of Karkat's heckling. Karkat tries to educate Dave on quadrants and is quickly shut down, as he is not comfortable with sharing a partner. This is also why he and Terezi inevitably don't work out, because of the black romance sparking between her and Gamzee. This also sparks something of a truce between himself and Karkat. Because of their mutual love for Terezi, they work together to attempt to stage an intervention of sorts for her. Post-retcon, Dave and Karkat became extremely close, as is seen in the Vriskagram flash, where they are seen playing with the mare, watching movies, making music, and even cuddling together, if Dave passing out in Karkat's lap counts. This is extremely out of character for Dave, who isn't known to be affectionate ever. This seems to imply a romantic relationship. Though true to both of their nature, this is not explicitly stated, even though Vriska and Terezi seem to think something is there, as does John upon reuniting with Dave on the lily pad. He directly asks if they are a thing, to which he receives only awkward and flustered avoidance. Then, upon meeting Dirk, we see Dave confront his feelings about Bro and his abuse, and upon hearing that Dirk dated Jake, essentially asks for coming out advice. He says, "How did you tell your friends?" Sadly, we don't get to see the rest of that conversation, but that in itself tells us all we need to know. Dave is either pansexual or bisexual. After this leap of development, we see a hugely symbolic analogy for Dave finding closure in Collide, where he literally cuts the head off of Dirk, the symbol of his bro, his father figure, and we see that he has accepted the reality of his status as an abuse survivor through this. Once on Earth C, Dave and Karkat are seen living together, further implying a relationship between the two. Feelings for Karkat were also implied by Dave Epita's sprite, who stated, in response to Jespero's sprite asking about their feelings for Karkat, "I don't even feel conflicted about that. It sort of feels right still," implying that they have the same feelings for him, and we know Nepeta had deep romantic feelings for Karkat. In conclusion, Dave Strider had some of the most interesting and pleasantly surprising development as a character. He went from mildly homophobic and denying his trauma to accepting both his abuse and his sexuality. If you enjoyed this analysis, be sure to subscribe so that you can see my next video. Next, I will likely be discussing the theory that Karkat and the Vantises are actually mutated limebloods.